Dan, you've made BCC a better place with your social issues being brought to the table. Very good. Let's see if Greg agrees. Greg, come on up. You agree with that? That's not Dan.
Marlene said I've got 3 minutes, and if I go any longer, Dan's going to come up and sell me some raffle tickets. The first time Dan used his immense body to come and hover over me to sell me those raffle tickets, and I bought them. And I went home and I thought, well, I don't want to go sell raffle tickets, but I took a whole bunch of them, so I ended up having to go out and buy them all on my own. So I worked out like 30 bucks, and I won. And I think that he planned it. I think he pulled my number on purpose, because I think I won $35 for that 30, but then I was stuck for the next 15 years of buying $30 for raffle tickets every single year. 30 years. Dan Gilbart is much, much more than you know, a respected 43-year veteran here. He is, to this day, the reason I no longer carry my wallet when I'm on campus. About 10 years ago, I started leaving my wallet in my car. I took it away, and someone said, "Are you sure, you know, that that's the right thing you want to do, is leave the wallet in the car?" And I said, "It's better than bringing it on campus. Because if you get broken into once and they steal $100, that's nothing like getting hit up by Dan." I started here 19 years ago, and one of the first things I was invited as a faculty member to be involved in a seminar that Dan was running, where we had maybe 10 people get together. We read a book and then we discussed it. To me, it was what faculty in higher ed should do. It was back when we were teaching 4 classes. We had time for these kind of things. And I mentioned that Jerry. I actually remember a conversation with Jerry I had around that time, and I said, "Yeah, this guy Dan Gilbart." I said, "I'm going to go to this seminar that he's offering. It's in D209. I'm not sure where that is, but I'm going to go to it." And he said, "Oh, he's really involved." And he really is. And for all the, you know, and for all the raffle tickets that we've all bought, and the donations to the coalition and so on, Dan, you really have been. Jack said it. You really have been to so many of us the conscience of the institution. For me, you've been a role model. You've made me feel bad when I haven't been as giving and as I should be. But with that kind of pressure on me, I think it makes all of us give a little more. And we're all grateful for it. So congratulations, Dan.
Dan, I don't feel so bad. I don't have my checkbook. I couldn't pay to eat this evening, and I couldn't make a donation because I learned early. I've only been here 5 years. Leave your checkbook in the car. So with that being said, I'd like to see if Tanya Nicolette has a story.
I had to put some notes in front of me because otherwise I would speak for half an hour. I know too much about it. I have known Danny Gilbart for 43 years, longer than his wife Marlene. I have known him as a fellow faculty member, as a community activist, and as a friend. In the fall of 1966, BCC admitted its first students. There were only 17 teachers and administrators at the time, believe it or not. I was a member of the faculty, a history teacher, and gradually I saw the college grow in size. I met Dan in 1969. He had applied for a teaching position, and I was a member of the search committee. He was an outstanding applicant, intelligent, witty, right on what I say. I was against the war in Vietnam, and so was he. That was so we recommended him for the position of instructor in sociology. He proved to be a caring and highly effective teacher. He inspired many of his students to put their newly acquired knowledge into service in the community at large. And not many people did that, actually. He was outstanding in that respect. As I found out from Shelley tonight, who gave me a ride here, she told me that he was actually a major force in her life. I can understand it. He set an example by being a community activist, helping to establish the Coalition Against Poverty and the Coalition for Social Justice. And a lot of you here know that standing work that has been done there. He helped to build a people's movement to support public policies such as affordable housing, healthcare, more education, etc., which would help ordinary, working class people. And that is a tremendous accomplishment. And many of our students actually followed in his footsteps.
We love BCC, to say the least. It's a great place, and I know you all feel the same way. Actually, I skipped over something, a funny story I wanted to tell you. We were always so political and always doing so much. We weren't really hippies, because hippies kind of sit around and smoke dope and do nothing, you know. We were always very political. We were always looking, maybe not on the right things. And I always say to people, whatever the coalition is doing right now, it's because we made so many mistakes all up, you know, until we got it right with the coalition. And we tried to just learn from our mistakes because we wanted to make a difference. We saw the potential and how much the need was to change things. And so we were very focused. But my biological clock was ticking, you know. Remember my cousin Vinny, right? And so I had broached the subject of having a baby with Dan, and Dan was so focused. He had, I mean, his background is that he's an only child. When his parents left Brooklyn to go, his father was a professor of math at Stanford, so he was kind of ripped away from all cousins, all little kids. So his attitude was, wait a minute, I'm focused on all these things. And I was like, how can I convince this guy to have a kid, right? So Dan always loved his cat. He had a cat, and it was a very fat cat. And in his house in California, they had, you know, one of those with the beams, and the cat would sit up in the top and hang over. It was very big. So finally I figured out, I said, you know, a kid is more fun than a cat. And he said, really? So bingo, we had son number one, our wonderful son Benjamin, and that really, you know, it's all you know when you have your first kid, your life changes dramatically. And then, you know, we realized he needed a little playmate, and we wanted him not to be an only child, so we have son number two, and very proud of both our children. They're the greatest. One other thing I want to just mention to you about Dan is that not only does Dan love sports, Dan was a Little League coach for 6 years. So I was doing all this political stuff, I was being the dad, we were doing all this stuff. He's also was a Little League coach, and he loved it. That was like one of the best things that I ever did. So that's how we know Renee, because Renee's son, Mark, is very good friends of Ben. And so he did coaching, and it was, to this day, that was the way, because we don't come from New Bedford, I'm from Ohio, I'm from California. Honestly, that's the way we really integrated ourselves in New Bedford, was Little League. So we're very grateful to that. I think also that, just a funny story I'm going to tell you, which relates to Missy, but Dan and I always talk about, trying to find the best book, and I know all of you do. You're trying to always looking for that best book. I mean, Bill Kelly even wrote a book, tried to find the best book. And so Dan found this book, Rachel on Children, by Jonathan Kozol, right? And he loved to see the reaction. The students really liked the book that he chose, that it would really bring them out. So he was always fond of telling a story about a guy in his class named Ed who, who never could motivate him to do the work. And then he read this book, he read Rachel and Her Children, and he ended up writing this fabulous paper. And then we talked about, see if you have the right book, you can really bring it out and make a student, really reach their potential, right? And one day we were talking about this, and Missy said, I wrote the paper because it was her boyfriend. Anyway, I run into, and I'm running into a lot of students, because when you have, and Dan's been here for so long, and you have hundreds of students every semester, they're all over the place. And I've been running into a lot of them who say, Dan really is a professor I remember. He really made a difference in my life. So I think, BCC, we owe so much to BCC to give Dan the opportunity to have that contact with students, to be able to make a difference. And I just want to say that Dan is a very gentle giant. I know he's a big guy, but he's a very gentle man. And he always says what he means, as Joe Biden said last night. Joe Biden, go Joe Biden! And finally, the last thing I want to say is that he has created 4 organizations. I mean, not only did he have the Regional Action Group.
Oh, no.
Right? Ed remembers that one. The For the People organization. We had the PAC. It was, what was it called? The People's Action Committee, which was a student group, and we did the Shell boycott and work on South Africa and El Salvador, and then culminating in CAP and CSJ. By the way, I have, and PASS, right, but that wasn't BCC or anything. But anyway, I just have an announcement to make, which will make everybody's life easier, that it's going to be just one name. It's going to be the Coalition for Social Justice. So you can write it, text it up, or not, okay? But anyway, you guys have been so wonderful to our family, to us, to the organization, to progressive social change. We thank you so much, and thank you for being here. I want to just read, Sue Bosno couldn't be here, and she sent this really sweet little note, and I didn't even show Dan because I wanted to read them. And she said that, I wanted to know that students have helped Professor Gilbert in very high esteem since he began here at the college. It is no wonder that all seats were full and beyond in his classes. Dan knew more about universal design before we actually had a label for this, and always taught to each student at the place or skill level the student presented in class. It was rare that a student did not successfully complete a class taught by Dan, as he made his curriculum, including projects, as accessible as possible. Dan has taught to the most challenging of students and has never questioned ability or motivation, but instead has helped those students know their strengths and increase their motivation to graduate from BCC and transfer. The impact that Dan has had upon the community will continue to be measured as the many generations of his students are now in the community as successful parents, grandparents, professionals, and educators.
I know we've had quite the evening. We have numerous speakers this evening. I'm going to now invite the sons up. Sons. Ben, Eric, come on up.
Thank you all for coming. By the way, my name is Eric. I'm Dan's youngest son. Just wanted to talk a little bit about what BCC has meant to me and the type of father that he has been in combination with the two. I just have very vivid early memories of accompanying my mother and father to work, on school vacations, and running around e-building, going into different offices, stealing paper clips, coming to the G-building, having something to eat, some snack, getting movies from the library, watching them, and just really it seemed like a real cool place to be. He always introduced me to all of his colleagues, and see a lot of familiar faces. Probably haven't seen me in a while. Father's not only been an outstanding role model, source of inspiration, and wealth of information for myself, but he's also influenced and informed countless students over the past 40 years, as we heard everybody say already. Many times I've been greeted with the question, like, "Dad, your father, son?" And followed up with, "I love your father. He was my teacher." They always talk about his relentless goal to deconstruct stereotypes, present alternative theories, pose questions that provoke critical analysis of social problems and race relations, and he's left indelible impressions on many former students that I know and have met over the years. It was either that or the impression of his deep monotone voice. I had one of my friends tell me, "I had your father 8 o'clock class by 8:10, I was knocked out." It was like Barry White was teaching us sociology. It wasn't only the students. I have a memory of bringing a friend of mine home and eating dinner with the family, and my father picks his head up from the plate and looks at her and says, "So, what do you think is the most important social problem in America?" And my friend looked at me as she's slurping up her spaghetti, like, "What did you get me into?" I was look, and I knew from that point on I had to give a prep course every time I had to. These are the questions that you might run into, so don't get intimidated. I know he's a big guy, but it wasn't like he would force his beliefs or opinions on anybody. I know firsthand I've always been an observant and analytical type. I always challenged and questioned him about issues, even if I was just playing devil's advocate, but I didn't want to just take everything because, my father and my mother, I don't want to just take it. I wanted to see if I could really trust it. And he always had logical answers, well thought out responses based in facts. He helped shape and hone my analytical skills, and I'm sure he helped many students and other people do the same along the way. A lot of people have commented on my father's intelligence, and we always used to tease him about his 1534 SAT score, his Harvard degree, unfortunately 1534, Harvard undergrad, PhD from Northeastern, couldn't help him figure out how to work a remote control. He consistently calls me and says, "Listen, Eric, TV's not working." Let's press the TV button. One thing, I always was really aware of all the work they were doing. I was on a picket line when I was 6 months old, so I really had an idea of what they were, what my parents were trying to do, the goals they were striving for, social